Welcome to the 2024 winter and spring. So February and April 2024 ENP study group through On Scene First. This is week 9. We're going to be starting the management portion. There are a few sections for the management portion. And so we're going to break that up over the next couple of weeks. I'm just going to get rid of some housekeeping things. I'm going to go through them kind of quickly today because after after today, I'm just going to have a recorded version of it that I'm going to put at the beginning of the video. I wanted to make sure that I was covering all the things that I needed to cover. And now that the scholarship stuff will be out of the way after next week, I can just record it and put it at the beginning. So those of you that are on every week, you don't have to hear the same thing over and over again. So I apologize for that, but we will for sure take care of it. So if you are joining us on YouTube, you stumbled across this video. We are currently in a live study group that will go until January 19th, 2024. If you have not registered for the study group, you can do so at onscenefirst.com/training/study ENP, or just scan the QR code that you see on your screen. And if you have registered, but you have not been able to access the Google group or the calendar invite that you should have received, just go ahead and email my lovely assistant at info@onscenefirst.com, and she'll get that taken care of for you. If you're watching this session after January 19th, 2024, and you are wanting to get access to the materials, the PDFs, the MP3s, practice exams, etc., just go ahead and go to onscenefirst.com/training/study ENP, or scan the QR code there. And there is a spot for you to, or there will be a spot there for you to request access. And then the next study group will be on March 8th. That will be the live study group for actually the year of 2024. And then we'll be moving to one a year. I don't think it's going to be over this time frame, because I've noticed it's very challenging for me with a lot of travel in the fall as well as the holidays. So we'll probably stay more towards the beginning of the year if you're looking for the next study group. Oops, hold on. Something else just opened. We are proudly partnered with Nina Ontario, and they will be providing a Canadian ENP study group session. We're still trying to figure out which dates that's going to be. So as soon as we have it, I will for sure let you know. And if you want more information, you can scan that QR code there, or head on over to the website. In the PDF, that is a clickable link. Thank you to Rapid SOS, our premier study group sponsor for the On Scene First ENP study group. They have been since its inception in mid-2021. I'm always appreciative of their support, especially for this. And as far as the scholarships go, I got to figure out a way to do this. I hope to give myself enough time. So if you are one of the folks that submitted for the scholarship, I have not made my decisions yet. I have my choices from the vendor partners. So our vendor partners who are making this possible is Rapid SOS, Responder Services Consulting, and LB Comms. And so they have made their selections. However, there's two things that I need. One, I need the recipient to email me back to let me know that they are going to still take the exam in February and that they will be able to register by January 5th. And I need an answer back from their director saying that their agency does not cover the cost of the exam for them. So out of 18, and I try to make this clear at the beginning of every session, is that folks need to go to their directors and ask them, if I take the ENP exam, will it be covered? Because out of the 18 that submitted, 6 of them came back that their agency would cover the exam. So that takes 6 people out of the running. And so they didn't realize that their agency would cover that. So The rules are your agency can't cover the exam and you need to be able to submit when I need to. So if you are on the call and you received one of those emails and your director has not reached back, please get them to reach back to me. I'm hoping to get the recipients notified by Monday, and then I will publicly announce them all on next Friday's session. So sorry about the delay there, but it is out of my hands at this point. I also just want to share the On Scene First store at onscenefirst.com/store. We have some t-shirts there as well as stickers and our new challenge coins. And if you keep an eye out there, or if you register on my website at the bottom of the page, onscenefirst.com, you'll see when we are going to put out a little telecommunicator week kind of gift package if anybody's interested in that. So you'll get that notification if you register for the newsletter. So now on with the show. So 50% of the exam is going to be classified as 911 management. It's going to be broken down into 2 sections. And I highly recommend, whether or not you've been in this profession for a long time, if you have been a director for many years, you think that you have the operations stuff down, you still need to review this material. A lot of folks that have been in the center for a long time will come back and say, wow, that was challenging information. I thought that if I focused on the technology piece, or what they call kind of operations side of things, then I would be fine on the 911 management. And if you're on the vendor side and you haven't spent any time in the 911 center, but you're still qualified to take the exam, you need to put the work in over here because there's just some questions that many of us might never have even thought about touching in our time in the 911 center. So definitely put some time here. As usual, I try my best to come up with some little tricks and tips to help you guys remember it. I have a couple for this week's session, but a lot of it is just providing you with a PowerPoint slide where everything is broken down. And I'm also going to show you an example of some of the quiz questions that are going to start appearing each week, as long as time allows. If not, you'll definitely be getting them all in the near future for some little quizzes on the topics that we're covering that week. So I've been able to successfully figure out how to do that rather quickly. So it's a good thing. So this first section is 911 and the management of the organization. Okay. So the next section, actually, there'll probably still be a little bit more of the organization. But then during one of the management sessions, we will be going over the management of the employee. And that's going to be a little bit more of the information, and then legislation as well that goes in there. And then we're going to circle back around and get back into the technology piece. I've learned that by putting the more challenging technology piece towards the end, it is more beneficial for folks because it's fresh in their head and they realize how much they actually have to learn, and they can kind of buckle down and put their nose to the grindstone, if you will. So this first section is we're going to talk about procurement and budgeting and RFPs and all that stuff. And again, I always just, I give you as much information as I think they are looking for. I hope that it's spot on. I hope that it is helpful. It's a little challenging sometimes looking at the study guide and the body of knowledge. They don't always line up with each other. And I don't always know how deep they want us to go with the topic. So I do my best. So as far as budgeting goes, most PSAPs have 2 budgeting processes. One is operational and one is capital. And we're going to go ahead and go through both of those. So operational is what we deal with on a yearly basis. Most years in a 911 center will go from July 1st to June 30th. So it spans over 12 months. These are the funds that are dealing with the agency's operational costs, payroll, utilities, supplies, rent, leases, system maintenance. This is usually the stuff that we're using every day in the 911 center and we have to purchase on a regular basis. Those are things that we can kind of predict. We know when we're going to need them, and we need all of these things to be operational. Um, on the capital side, these are usually long-term major processes. They're usually over 5 years, this process. And this is when we are needing to update our phone systems, CADs, radios, consoles. These are big ticket purchases. This isn't paper and pens and elastics. These are the big ticket items, and they have to it has to kind of be spelled out over this process. And then there are certain things that you're going to need to procure the funding for these larger ticket items. So we're going to break it down into wants, needs, and the actual procurement process. So this process right here, Nina request for proposal consideration information document, in the PDF. This will be a clickable link. There used to be a actual like URL that I was able to post, but the URL doesn't actually bring you here. It just brings you to the main page. So if you copy this URL or the extension and or click on the link in the PDF, it should bring you there. This is not specific to a generalized process. It's kind of specific to the next gen kind of proposal and process. But a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about are in here as well. So I always, one, recommend the links that they recommend in the study guide, as well as the any place that can provide additional information, because I can't put everything in and I don't know what everything that should be in there. So, but the other thing is the way that the guide is set up, as well as the body of knowledge, as well as my thought process and what should go first. And I'm not really sure. So I have place the slides where I think they make the most logical sense. So if you're following the PDF along with your study guide or your body of knowledge, they might not be in the same exact order as they are on there, because it doesn't make sense to me to explain the planning and implementation process the way they have it at the end, because we will have already talked about those things. So as far as the planning and implementation process goes, when we have to make a larger ticket item purchase, the tactical or short-term planning efforts will begin after the research is complete and the best options are selected for a project. There are 3 important areas when it comes to any type of major purchase. First of all, the timetable for the project. How long is this going to take us? Or how long should it take us? The big question is, what is it going to cost? And so what is the budget for the implementation, and who is going to be doing what on the project? And so we're going to break down the assignment of duties in what we should be looking for there. So assignment of duties is a unique skill set that should be considered when selecting the person that is going to be doing certain things, right? The second thing is they have to be willing to do the thing, whatever it is, whether they're going to be the manager of the project manager, or maybe they'll be the secretary of it, like kind of keeping track of all the things. I've learned of late, or over the last few years, that there are things that I just should not be doing. One, with my personality style, and two, with my ADHD, that while I am a great verbalizer and communicator, the actual part of documentation and The tasky things, yeah, I don't love them, and I probably will no longer put myself in a position to undertake large tasky things. So making sure that the person is willing and able and just capable of doing the task. Again, timetables, budgets, and expectations are a must. One of the things that I've learned recently is, again, with the personality styles, there are certain personality styles that will take exactly what you say exactly the way that it is. So, a very simple instruction could be misinterpreted by someone. So, especially in a major purchase, making sure that the communication is on point and that everybody is on the same page. And then the compensation for the person that is going to be undertaking this particular this job. This is one of those things that folks don't always do. Some folks in the center will. But there's a lot of changes, big changes that take place in a 911 center. And so if it's written into your job description that you're going to do these things, great. If it's not, and now you are handed a flaming bag of you know what, it might be necessary to go back to the table and negotiate for financial compensation based on the magnitude of the project that you're working on. When you are looking at the assignment of duties, consider a project manager. Some larger agencies, they might actually have somebody that is on staff for this, and the smaller agencies might have to have somebody doing the dual role. So it might actually be the director or the deputy director, or maybe even a supervisor, depending on how small the agency is. And that project manager's role is to keep the vendor on task and manage expectations and deadlines. So, again, making sure that you have the right person in the role for that. As far as the conceptual system goes, it's basically just that you're developing the concept of what it is that we are going to be accomplishing as we are moving forward with the procurement process. So the conceptual process could be just, all right, the concept is we need to get a generator and it needs to work every time the power goes out. That's kind of a what is it that we need versus it has to have this, and this before we start going through the process of the procurement. It describes what the product should do rather than how it should do it. So, to go in line with what I just said, I need a generator to turn on when the power goes out, and I need it to provide electricity to the entire police department or half the police department or parts of the police department. And so that's what it needs to do. But how it's going to need to do it, that's going to be a little bit further down the line. And it can be used to justify the budget and the procurement. As far as the planning goes, we have 4 different types of stages, if you will. First is the short term, which plans to address the immediate needs. So say we had an issue with the our generator not working, and I know I've used that example before, and it just seems to be one that works. Our generator did not work during one of our major power outages, and we need to do something in the interim. So does that mean we have to purchase, a separate generator just so we can at least get the communication center up and running if there should be a power outage before we're able to really replace the entire thing? The long-term range is plans to forecast for future requirements. So what that might mean in this case is, yeah, we have a great big generator and it can do most of the 911 center, but guess what? It didn't work. So does that mean that we put a smaller one in place? So if we should lose that, at least we have the primary area of the center or the communication center with power. That's would be considered the long-term range. Strategic plans. that also align with the procurement and organizational goals. And then the continuity of operations. Coop, there's a couple of places that we will see this. We saw it once in the emergency management, and we're going to see it here. And that's the plans to ensure operational resilience in the face of disruption. So, continuity of operations, let's make sure we put it back either the way that it was if it had been damaged. If not, we have to put it back better or maybe redundant as well. So integrating these planning perspectives helps organizations navigate uncertainties, optimize procurement practices, and maintain operational resilience. So you can't just wing it. Sometimes you can just go purchase something quickly, but if it's a big ticket item, you have to go through some of these stages. So as we're looking at a capital budget or long-term needs, we're going to have to do a needs assessment. That needs assessment will kind of start, say you're building a new 911 center, you're renovating, you have some grant money, whatever it is. Before you do any major project or changes, you should do a needs assessment. And that's before starting any type of process, right? Any purchasing process. So we have to identify the exact needs and the requirements. They must be defined, and especially the needs of the telecommunicator. I know that in many 911 centers, the telecommunicator gets overlooked and folks above them are making decisions based on their behalf. I was in an agency not that long ago, and one of the computers that they needed on a regular basis was behind them to the left. So everything they did here, but this particular computer that they used on a regular basis was behind them to the left, and that it was not practical. So under the consulting rule, it's like that needs to be moved up here because it's not going to get used. Something could get overlooked, and it's taking away from the flow of what the telecommunicator is doing. And so while an IT person says, I have the space over here, it makes sense to me for it to be over here, the needs of the telecommunicator need to be taken into consideration. And I'll say that louder for the people in the back. The needs can be done by either the staff that's on duty or a study taking things into consideration, doing a survey in the center, doing a survey outside the center, going on to Facebook. I see these all the time. Hey, we're building a new center. What is a must have? And I'm just curious, does anyone know what the most common thing is that folks say has to be in a 911 center? If they're rebuilding or remodeling or they have the opportunity to make a big purchase, if you're on and you want to just put it in the chat, I'll try to remember to tell you in a few minutes. I'm just curious if anyone knows what keeps coming back at the top of the list of something that has to be in a 911 center. And these things, well, bathroom, yes. Windows, that's a good one, but nope, there's one more. And then they can be broken down into two categories: must-haves and nice-to-haves. And so the must-haves would be chairs. The nice-to-have would be a window. Must-have would be a bathroom. Nice-to-have, are you ready for the number one thing that comes back in the majority of the assessments I do? An ice machine. An ice machine. Yep. And they're very specific about their ice too. It has to be a certain kind of ice, but if at minimum, if you want to make your folks happy, get them an ice machine. It is a hot commodity, but USB chargers, I like that too. But so an ice machine would be a nice to have versus a must have. So there we go. And then here's a couple of things as far as the procurement process goes. Once the conceptual design is approved, the RFP can start to be developed. The RFP is a request for a proposal, and we're going to go ahead and go over that in just a couple of minutes. The RFP is sent to determine the list of vendors. It may be advertised in a local newspaper, trade magazines, or it could be emailed to folks that you know are going to be interested in this particular project. And usually the submission window is going to be anywhere from 45 to 90 days. The bigger the project, the longer the time is that you would probably offer. Submissions are ranked in order of the most compliant, or rather they should be, right? So they have a lot of boxes that need to be checked. And then if they don't have one box checked, but they have a different box checked, then we start going through that after. The top vendors may then be asked to give an oral presentation with a product demonstration, depending on what it is that you're looking to purchase. And once the top vendor is selected through the appropriate process, then the negotiations of the financial piece begin. The contract may be a combination from both the agency and the vendor. So most vendors have their own contracts, and then most centers have their own contracts. And so what they do is they try to merge the two together and make sure that everybody is happy. So now we're going to go through just a few of the different types of, I don't know what you would call them, requests for, I guess. But I have these broken down into the focus, criteria, and the purpose of them. But again, I'll say this over and over again. One of the easiest ways for me when I study is to kind of not look at the whole sentence, right? Is just to kind of look at the most important words. So in this case, I'm going to get rid of the request for, and I'm going to look at what a bid is, right? So if you think about when you go to an auction, or the phrase that we hear often when it goes into when somebody's referring to something that was purchased in a government entity is it's clear it went to the lowest bidder, right? So when you say it's clear that it went to the lowest bidder, or the lowest bidder would get it, or this must have been the lowest bidder's work, it means that it was a financial decision. They were the cheapest, so we went with them. So there wasn't a whole lot of information that went through to get this particular information. So that's what you're going to see in the definition. So not a ton of information. It's a request for a bid, right? So it's centrally focused on the cost as the main criteria. And so if you just kind of focus on that bid and being the lowest bidder, it has to do with a financial obligation. Okay. The primary goal is to obtain the lowest price bid that meets the specified requirement. So goes to the lowest bidder. There we go. It emphasizes adherence to specific predefined requirements or specifications, and the bidder must meet the minimum criteria to be considered. The purpose used when organization's primary concern is the cost. So when it comes down to any question that you see that is very specifically identifying cost and nothing else, chances are it's going to be the request for a bid, lowest bidder. Okay. And then when you are bidding on something in an auction, you're not getting a whole lot of detail, right? So think about going to one of those storage wars, which my friend's been doing lately, and I just think it's hilarious, but he's got some really good stuff out of there. But they don't really know what's in the storage unit. They're just paying money for it. They're just giving an amount, and it's going, in that case, it's going to the highest bidder, right? So all based on money. Request for proposal, and the reason why I have the engagement ring there is because we know that goes along with a proposal. So take out the request for and specifically focus on the proposal. I am not going to say yes to that proposal unless I know all the things. So the RFP is going to have all the things. It's going to be the most detailed. It's going to give you a ton of information. It considers things beyond cost. So the vendor's experience, their approach, creativity, added value. While the cost is essential, it's not the determining factor. So my husband's famous phrase is you get what you pay for. So sometimes cheaping out isn't always the best way to go. So the request for proposal evaluates proposals based on various criteria. Okay. So all the things, if there's a whole bunch of things listed, chances are it's going to be the request for proposal. Will they ask a question on which order things go in? I don't think so, because not every agency does things the exact same way. And sometimes they ask for a proposal, an RFP right out of the gate. Sometimes they'll just ask a request for a bid. Some might put out a request for information, which we'll talk about in just a second. But the request for the proposal is usually when they're starting over with something and they want all the details. So just like that ring right there, you're not going to accept the ring unless you have all the details, right? The request for a quote, which would come after the request for proposal. So basically, I'm going to give you all of the things. And this is about the ballpark that we're going to be in for this particular project under that RFP. So once I've decided, okay, hey, Acme Tool Company and, whatever the other company is, I have it narrowed down to the two of you. Now I'm going to request a quote, but I'm going to need this, this, and this added or this changed. And now that quote is going to serve as a negotiation tool. So the quote is just that. It's a quote. It primarily concentrates on obtaining pricing information for specific goods or services outlined in the request. The main goal is to compare and select the most cost-effective supplier vendor based on those qualified specifications. Okay, so while you have the request for a bid, that's kind of generalized, right? Hey, I could do this. I could do it for about $1,500. I'm thinking, right? So I'm going to put that bill in, and then now I want a more detailed quote. So we're not just going to kind of go with a ballpark figure there. And then the request for information, I have kind of just the facts. Oops, just the facts up there. Just the facts. The focus here, it aims to gather general information from the potential vendors about their capabilities, their products and services, industry experts, without seeking pricing or bids. They don't want to put a price tag on it yet. They just kind of want to get some unofficial information. What makes you so valuable for this job? And this may even be, something that they're doing on their own, researching it online, etc. But it's pretty simple, straightforward recommendation for just information, but not including money. So just the facts, no money, just the facts. It's used to gather preliminary information about available solutions, understand what's out there. So, maybe, hey, I don't know much about this particular product. Could you just give me some more information about it? And then we'll go from there. Request for qualifications is just that. I want to know what your qualifications are. And I know I'm not reading all of the information on these slides. It doesn't make sense for me to do that. But the information is there if you should want to peruse it. I'm just trying to give you all of the information and little tips and tricks to remember what each one is. So the request for qualifications, it primarily centers around evaluating and pre-qualifying vendors or services based on their qualifications, expertise, and capabilities that are relevant to the organization's needs. It's about assessing their suitability to participate in subsequent phases of the procurement process. So, you really need to be careful in which companies you're choosing to come and work into your 911 center. So I need to know what your qualifications are. When I look at some of the console cleaning companies, there's a few out there, and it's kind of a big deal when they say that they are CJIS certified, right? So then that when they can show that their qualifications are they're CJIS certified, then those folks can be in your center and they know the magnitude of confidentiality and all the things that they needed to learn to be able to pass that particular certification. So it's kind of like a resume, right? Qualifications, resume, what you look like on paper. And then sometimes there is a pre-bid or a proposal, and that might just be an organization holds a meeting to say, hey, if you're a vendor that provides 911 phone systems or CADs or radio systems, on this date and this time, we're going to have a generalized meeting to talk about the magnitude of our project. And we would like to open it up to everyone. Can't do it privately because then we're bordering on some ethics shenanigans. But the meetings can allow the folks that are doing the project to explain some things that, you know, may warrant some questions, etc. And this is the opportunity to do that. So before the bid, before the proposal, a generalized meeting to be able to answer any questions. As far as the procurement methods, policies, procedures, and laws go, they vary by jurisdiction, right? So some jurisdictions say if you're going to purchase anything over $1,000, it has to go through a procurement process. Some say anything over $5,000. Some say anything over $10,000. If you don't know, you need to ask. You don't want to be asking for forgiveness on something that you should have asked about making a large purchase. That could not work out very well in your favor. The more formal process is the RFP, and the informal process is just asking for a quote. And then sometimes there's a piggyback quote, which is if there's a state bid that it just means that this bid or this is the amount that the state has agreed is an appropriate price for this. So you can actually piggyback onto what has already been provided to the state as a generalized state bid or state quote system. A change order is just that. It's a modification to the original specifications and or the cost to which the parties mutually agree. Change orders are usually a result of an unexpected situation that could not be easily foreseen when the specifications were developed. So in this case, they gave an example of a new piece of equipment being swapped out for something because it's that model number or that particular unit is no longer available and you have no choice but to go up to the next version of it. Or there might be additional parts because once they got under your console, they realized that you didn't have the doohickey what's it dangle and you needed that as well. So the change order would be submitted, worked through with both parties, and then they would agree to make that change. However, they should be kept to a minimum. You don't want to keep changing things in the procurement process. Okay. And then as far as the decision making goes, when it comes to various options and alternatives, these are some areas where things should be evaluated before any action is taken regarding these major purchases. So we'll go through these. Political considerations. When we look at political considerations, it could be something as simple as you have two jurisdictions, you have this sheriff's department and this sheriff's department, and they're run by two different sheriffs. And now we're crossing over lines and who's going to be in charge, etc. That could be considered political, as well as are we crossing over between public and private partners, a government agency versus a private entity. Our operational considerations. Does the solution or service make sense for our organization, or are we just going to wing it and see how it works? I just got a little bit of nostalgia that came back when we were looking for a fire department notification system. I had gotten the information from a vendor at the APCO conference, and I tried really hard to make their product work in our center, but it was just too large for what we needed. We were a very small agency, and they tried to make it worth our while. They were very good, and they did not charge us, but it didn't work out. So operationally, is this going to make sense for this particular center? Financial obligation, is it cost effective and is it reasonable? Right. So we have lots of products that are available out there. We have some that are very reasonable, like free, and then we have some that are astronomically priced. And it doesn't even make sense to me how some folks could charge for some of the things that they do. But the financial cost has to be taken into consideration. And then legislative decisions. I'll tell you that as a one person 911 center in the year 2011, I did not want to be providing EMD instructions, not because I didn't think we were capable. We ended up being very capable of doing it. I was very proud of my team and how they very meticulously call processed with one person and completed EMD on almost every call, as well as dispatching police, fire, and EMS. But we didn't have a choice. So legislatively has to do with the decision-making process. Massachusetts in June of 2012, there was a mandate that said every 911 call will have EMD provided. You can either do it yourself or you can ship it out, and we're going to pay for it. We're going to pay for the training. We're going to pay for, whatever the product is, and we'll take care of it. But this is what the legislation says. So sometimes the decisions are being made outside of your control. NG91 system administration, does it meet the standards? There are NENA I3 standards, and there are certain standards that are out there when it comes to how things are moving through the network, etc. Does it meet those standards? That's part of your decision. Will it work with our vendor partners? I'm sorry, with our other partners like our police, our fire, our EMS? Are we able to access other agencies' information? Are we able to talk on the same radio? All of those are decision considerations. And database management is also part of that decision. So will it do what is needed? And who will own it? Who's going to maintain that database? And this one's not listed, but this is a Tracy tip. This is take this for what it's worth. I'm talking about it, so it's important to mention it. Is ethics needs to be made in a decision. Maybe my brother-in-law is a great electrician, or he's a great IT person, and I want to hire him to do this job. No, stay far away from that. Unfortunately, I had a little mishap with the ethics commission in Massachusetts, and while it was ultimately an error of ignorance, not intention, and I got a slap on the wrist, it's still not a very good feeling to have to go through something like that. So when you're making those decisions, all these considerations should be taken into effect, and the added bonus for the ethics there. This is a Gantt timetable chart. Some agencies are using this type of tracking to track major projects. There should be some type of timetable tracking in place, whether you make up your own spreadsheet or use something like the Gantt chart here. It must be reasonable. The timelines must be reasonable, and always add for wiggle room, right? Because nothing in public safety goes the way that it's supposed to. And it should be detailed. However, it should have that flexibility, right? And then whoever is responsible for what should be listed. So it's not a matter of, well, I didn't know I was supposed to be doing that, and I didn't take care of it. So there's that. So that's all we have on that procurement process. That was the material that was in the manual and on the body of knowledge. So I hope the little tips and tricks were beneficial. And then we're going to cover the public education and our media relations. And we're going to kill two birds with one stone on this. Wasn't sure how long the other one was going to take, but we have a little bit of time. So I'll go ahead and get this section done as well. So, according to the Public Relations Society of America, the PRSA, and if anyone has any questions about the procurement process, go ahead and put them in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer those if I have the answer. If not, I'll know where to find them. But according to the Public Relations Society of America, there is a difference between public education and public relations. So, public education has historically been used in public safety communications industry to describe the outreach. How are we outreaching to our communities to educate folks, to share information, knowledge, etc.? And then public relations is a strategic communication process that builds mutually beneficial relationships between organizations and their public. And if I am not mistaken, I do recall a question on the difference between public education and public relations or something of that nature, right? So if you think of the education, it's sharing of knowledge. That's what education is. And then if the relations, think of relationship building, it's not just throwing information out there, it's building ongoing relationships so we can work together in the midst of crazy chaos. So I'll break the two down even further. Public education is obviously an important part of our 911 industry. It focuses on delivering a specific message to help educate the public. And I'm going to give you some examples of those specific messages in just a few minutes. The public education for 911 usually comes in the way of going into the schools, maybe safety fairs. And today we're doing a little bit more with social media, which I love seeing. The public education is usually pens, coloring books, but it's important that you do not reinvent the wheel. I want to share this resource with you. So NPEF, National Public Safety Educator Forum, that is located at that website, 911npef.org, is an amazing resource. They have a conference each year. Last few years has been virtual. I've spoke at that, but there is the ability, you can go to their website, you can join for free, and they have lots of resources. And then if they have their in-person conference, I want to say it's in different areas of the country, but definitely check it out. They have a lot of great things to help with public safety, public 911 communication stuff. And then public relations is that strategic communications process that builds a relationship that focuses on interaction with diverse stakeholders. So lots of different stakeholders. So our user agencies. So if we have our communication center, our police, our fire, our EMS, animal control, highway department, our government officials, whether you have a mayor, board of selectmen, etc., the media. We'll talk about the media in a little bit. Businesses, right? Our businesses in our jurisdiction. It's always good to have good relationships with the businesses, especially if you have some type of major event and you have some restaurants in town and you need to feed some people. Make nice with those folks. And then any type of nonprofit organizations, like we did a lot of work with the Lions Club. And then these relations can be done by having meetings, bringing them in for tours, working on different projects, special events, and utilizing social media. So what are some of the message topics that we should be reviewing with our folks as far as public education goes? Find the message that you want the audience to understand, that this could be challenging for them, and we want to make sure that they know about this particular thing. So number one, when and when not to call 911. That's a hot topic. How to call 911. So how to call from your cell phone, how to call from your home phone, how to call from VoIP and Skype and all these other things that are now going to, are able to send 911. There's jewelry out there that I can press a button and call 911. So, how to call 911, and then what to say when calling, and explain to folks the importance of, you know, trying to stay calm, take a deep breath. I ask a lot of questions. The reason why I ask a lot of questions is for this reason. It's not delaying response. So, getting that information out there, sharing a topic of MLTS and VoIP systems and some of the complications that we can have with that. And that plays on Carey's Law and Ray Baum's Act. Wireless location. Think about how many people have no idea that wireless location can be a challenge for 911. Texting capabilities and the protocol based dispatching. Yes, we're going to ask you questions. We're going to ask them in a certain order. We need you to answer those questions, and it's not delaying a response. So those are some of the message topics that they recommend. And then also sharing your wins, right? So this is a call from last year, City of Cincinnati. They had a CPR save. These are things every center that I work with, when I do a leadership and agency assessment and I ask like morale, and I will ask in the survey, have you been praised for a job well done? If so, how were you praised? And very few folks are saying that they were praised for like a major incident. And every center I work with, I talk about the importance of utilizing social media, but not just using it to tell people that it's the clocks are changing and change your smoke detector batteries. We should be highlighting our people all the time. Now, some may argue, why am I going to pat them on the back for doing their job? Because we want the public to see the amazing things that telecommunicators are doing. Number one, it clears up any misconceptions. So if we have a CPR save here, we can say, using a protocol based 911 emergency medical dispatch program allows us to ask pertinent questions to give appropriate CPR instructions. So it clears up any of the misconceptions. It shows the work that you do. It may even help with funding. Folks start seeing you and what you're doing. And then it could help with hiring challenges, right? If they don't know what a dispatcher is, but get yourselves out there on social media and get yourself out there in other types of groups as well. As far as the different target audiences go, there are different types of targeted audiences. So adults, children's, teens, and seniors. Every one of those messages are going to be a little bit different. And the tools that you're going to provide them could be different. Like, I'm not going to necessarily speak to 5-year-olds about cyberbullying or how to keep your safe self online, but I'm going to do that for the teenagers. But I will teach the 5-year-olds how to call 911 on a cell device, because if I'm just teaching them on their phone, most people don't even have a home phone, etc. Americans with disabilities, explaining what the options are for them, especially text to 911 that many of them may not know is available. Special needs community, MLTS users, non-English speaking callers. Reassure them we have options to call the language line. A lot of folks that don't speak English do not want to call 911. They don't feel safe calling 911 because they don't think that they're going to be able to be accommodated. So sharing that information is important. Field responders. I used to do a communications class for all of my field responders. It doesn't always help. They still just key the mic and talk. They don't wait for acknowledgement. They step all over each other. They think we're withholding information, but it is good to work with those folks. Public government officials. I wish I did this more. I thought my government folks knew what I was doing, but apparently they didn't. And I learned that towards the end of my tenure there. But they thought they knew what I was doing, but they didn't, and they didn't understand the magnitude of making major changes that were going to affect our department. And they just made it. They made decisions based on financial saving financial cost, etc. And it's sad that that happens, but building all these relations, public relations, are really important. So what are some ways to get the message out? Now, I got billboards up there, the first thing, but over here, this little billboard, we're not going to do this on a billboard. If anyone was from North Carolina that got calls on this particular, or at Christmas time, there are folks that are creating like little swinging folks like the Clark Griswold hanging off their house, stringing the lights. While it's cute, it might solicit some 911 calls. But I've seen 911 call billboards, call if you can, text if you can't type things, PSAs using your local news channel, having open houses or tours of the center, public safety fairs, national night out, any type of other fair, right? I'm sure if there's a major fair that comes into your jurisdiction, get some high energy, people driven folks, get them some pamphlets and stickers and books and head them on over there and get folks to understand. You may even get some folks that want to apply for some of those positions. Visiting the schools, the Council on Aging, assisted living, and larger facilities. Using printed materials such as mailings and newsletters, electronic media, email lists and text messages that will go out, using social media, and then partner with other companies that are in your jurisdiction. Okay, that might want to work with you. And then utilize the community resources that you have. So colleges, vocational schools, and marketing interns. Nobody thinks to use these when it comes to the community resources. I know that there was a lot of pamphlets that we had made. We'd go right to the vocational school here in our town and the printing, graphic design. All they charged us for was the materials. We didn't have to pay for them to make it. It was a learning experience. Any type of college has a marketing intern, enlist them. Imagine how good it would be on their resume to be like, hey, I did the PR and the social media for such and such a communication center. Utilizing the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts, the fire and crime prevention officers. So I have 2 fire department pictures here. Recently, our captain went and shared some valuable information with the seniors at the COA. And the bottom one is my husband, the deputy fire chief, doing some deputy fire chief explanations for the kindergartners from the school next door. And then utilizing nurses, teachers, daycare, and churches, right? Go into the schools. I know that the kindergartners, they want folks to come in and teach their students about 911. You can start teaching the 3-year-olds at the daycare centers. Ask the churches, can we come in and talk to folks? One of the biggest challenges we have is our callers, right? And the way they call the call in and not understanding. The responsibility falls on us to explain what it is that we're doing. They don't know that we're dispatching help. So tell them, as soon as we get to this place in the call, we're already dispatching help to you. Just know that I'm asking all these questions to help you, to get a better response, to make sure the appropriate response is coming, to update my responders, to make sure they come in with the right equipment. Imagine how much that'll help those folks that are calling. And then the media relations. It is so very important to have a good relationship with the media. Number one, you need to have an agency policy. Okay. Sorry, my dog's barking. My daughter should be taking care of it in a second. So you have to have an agency policy. So the policy in my center was that the telecommunicator did not speak to the media at all. Basically, they would say, we have nothing to report at this time. Let me get your name, your fax number, your email, whatever it is, and we'll get that passed on at a later time. They wouldn't say there's nothing going on. I know some folks will say, nope, there's nothing going on. They know there's something going on, but by saying I have nothing to report at this time, it just lets them know that that they want the info and we'll get it to them as soon as possible. When possible, have a PIO, a public information officer. give the PIO a heads up. The PIO isn't always on duty when the squid is hitting the sand. So give them a text message or shoot them a quick call and say, hey, we have a major incident, just letting you know, you're going to have to come up with something. Okay. And they may even have a press release template where they can just kind of fill in the blanks and just give them the basics, right? Knowing the media, having their contact names and numbers in advance and building a rapport with them. And that means even having a meeting with them in advance. Say, look, when my dispatchers are in there and it's chaos, I can't have you calling in there, but I promise you, as soon as we have the time to put a press release together, we will send it to you. Give us the best number and email address you want that sent to, and then do it for, not even major incidents. Do it so you show them that you are keeping up with what you promised, right? So maybe it's a major motor vehicle accident. Maybe there's a string of the house breaks or something. Just give them something that they're not expecting so they'll be able to trust you and they're not going to call you in the middle of it. If you know there's going to be a large event, let them know beforehand. Let the media know beforehand, and you can give them information that they might be able to share with the public on your behalf. Maybe there's a major storm coming, right? And you don't want people calling you when the power goes out. So you come up with a little blurb that says, the top 5 things that you need to know with the upcoming storm. Don't call 911 about your power out. The highway department will be plowing the main roads first, whatever it is that you need to let them know. Let them know in advance and see if they can help you get that information out. And then take control. Okay. Tell them what you need, be prompt, and then fax and email them something when it is ready. But don't tick them off. You tick off the media, it is not going to end well for you. I can assure you that. So I just want to share a couple of things. I just want to share this with you. This will be going out probably not on Monday. I'm going to try to get it out before Monday because of the Christmas holiday. But this is what the little exam or test questions on each summary is going to look like. I've started putting them together each time I'm putting the presentation together. But this is what it's going to look like. So we're not going to go through these in the study group, but they will be available as long as time allows. Eventually, I'm going to build them out so they will be at the end of each PDF. So as I'm doing that, I will remove the old PDF and I will put the new one in with the example questions. I'm actually taking all of the information that is in the study guide and using the ChatGPT tool to scan that information and create test questions. So while it does them very quickly, I still have to go through and make sure that they are all appropriate and that they make sense and that we covered the material. And I have to format them because when it moves over, it's not formatted. So it is a time-consuming process, but it is something that I'm committed to doing because I know that it helps. But this is what it's going to look like. So basically on the first page, it'll say which budget process involves cost for personnel, utilities, office supplies, and system maintenance over 12 months. So what you should be answering is B, operational budget. So then the next slide is going to have the correct answer there for you. So just wanted to share that with you. For this section right here, I have 30 questions. I have 15 for the first section and 15 for the second question, 15 for the first part, 15 for the second part. I just didn't have the time to format them and get them all in there. I'm going to take care of that this afternoon or tomorrow, and they will be off to you soon. And then I will go back and start taking care of the other ones. So this is just, how far in advance is the capital budget typically developed? 5 years. Okay. So hopefully that will be helpful. So with that, I will send you on your way. If nobody has any questions, here's my contact information. If you need to reach out to me quickly, you can scan that QR code right there. My email is up there, tldridget@onseeingfirst.com. In the lower right-hand corner is a private Facebook group for mental health and wellness with our 911 family and other first responders. So if you are going to join, please list the communication center or public safety entity you work for so I don't have to hunt you down and figure it out. But until next time, heroes, stay safe, stay strong, and stay here. We need you. And have a very Merry Christmas and a happy, healthy, and safe New Year. I appreciate you guys for what you do.